Hey everybody, I'm Heidelin with Austin Entertainment Management here with my co-host Swear Words. How's it going?
Good. How's it going, Heidi? How's it going, guys? What's up, Jeff?
Good. And you know what? Today we have a very, very special guest. We have Jeff Glauser of Brandscribed. He is going to tell us a whole bunch of very useful information today. We've got like a plan. I love a plan. How you doing, Jeff?
I'm doing well, Hides. It's a pleasure being here. Thank you so much for having me. Swear Words, it's a pleasure seeing you here. And can't wait to hop right in and start talking about that plan that you just alluded to and what we can do to put it into action and make it work for ourselves.
All right, but first we got to talk about what events we have coming up this week. So, as has been the schedule for the last couple of weeks, on Friday, I am interviewing another band from Pharmapalooza. That is a festival that's going on in Kaukauna, Wisconsin, June 9th through the 11th. It's going to be the most Wisconsin thing ever, camping in a farmer's field, hanging out with a bunch of really awesome people that enjoy music. And I wanted to give you the chance to really get to know the bands that are playing. So we are doing yet another interview, and let's see, this week is Grim Waters. Those guys were a lot of fun to interview and hang out with. Looking forward to hanging out with them at Pharmapalooza. And you can go to our website, howisthebomb.com/Pharmapalooza. You can watch all the interviews that I've done so far, see who the bands are that are playing, and you can get more information so you too can attend this event. Let's see. The other thing that I want to talk about this week is we have just launched our Accountable to Music Facebook group. And within this group, it's like an online mastermind. So it's not as good as when you're in an actual mastermind where there's a limited amount of people and you can actually have these conversations face to face. But within the group, there is a weekly schedule. So you're going to get asked, what do you want to accomplish this week on your music to-do list? And during the week, we're going to ask, are you stuck? Is there something that we can help you with? Thursdays is a great day for referrals. So if there's anything that you've learned, anything you want to share with the group, that's a good day to post that. And then on Sunday, you're going to report and tell us how you did for the week. So this is a very powerful tool to keep you on task, because when you are your own boss, sometimes watching television or doing something less productive is more interesting, and you let yourself do that instead. So know that we're here, we're watching, and we want you to get this stuff produced out into the world. We want to see these projects. So our group, and Mike, if you could put that in the chat, the link, that would be great. Go ahead and join and check out what we're doing there.
It's in there. Good to go.
Excellent. So this conversation is actually going to be in the guide section of the group so that you can go back and view the slides from this presentation that we're not going to see because this is going to be more of a conversation, but you can replay through this stuff, be able to take some notes. So right now, just focus on the conversation and listen and let some of this sink in. And then later on, come join the group, watch the replay and go back and take notes, because what Jeff is about to share with us is some really powerful stuff that not just musicians and people working in the music industry, but all kinds of entrepreneurs are missing this step. So they get to a certain point and they wonder why they're not able to connect with the people that they want to reach. So I think with that, I just want to finish the event section of this by saying you can go to halisthebomb.com/events to see what other events that we have going on during the week. So I am so excited, Jack, to have this conversation with you today. So with that, let's get started.
Sure. Thanks again. And as we've had numerous conversations about this. So, you and I go back a few years now, and it's both of us can relate to the challenges of building a personal brand. Both of us can relate to the challenges as far as how to change the narrative from what we were and how we were seen or how we were perceived as being seen to where we want to be and who we want to become. And I'll tell you, building a personal brand is not for the faint of heart. It's definitely a process. The things that I'm going to be sharing with you and the audience today, none of this, I want to be clear, is a magic bullet formula where you instantly put it out there and overnight you're flooded with calls and you have an overflow of business. Just not how it works. You might have something where you fall into the opportunity because of the consistency, because of the simplicity of it. But the whole formula that we have laid out in order for us to identify our tribe and have that tribe really kind of gravitate to us, because we've established this know, like, and trust type of formula. That's going to be the most important part as far as figuring out what are the beats that we need to cover as we get from an unknown entity to a known and likable brand. And like you said, whether you're a musician, whether you're a business owner, whether you're selling widgets, the most important thing is, first and foremost, really having a clear understanding of your audience. That comes before any of this stuff that I'm going to share. Is who is your audience? What do they aspire to become? What do they desire? And what's getting in their way of or obtaining that? And that's where ideally you come in to insert yourself as that guide to really kind of take them to where they want to go. So as a musician, that could be simply enough. Do you have some sort of message within your music, within your story, ideally both, that's going to resonate with this audience in such a way where A, now they're going to take notice, and B, then you can take them on this continuous journey from awareness to, all right, I'm in, what do you want me to purchase next? And again, the process is, I like to say, it's simple, it's not easy. Simple and easy are not synonymous. They're two completely different words. Usually, the simpler something is, ironically enough, the more difficult it is to implement. Because we tend to have all this information and all of this desire within us to try to get everything out there. Say, oh, well, you know what? I excel in this and I'm great at that. I'm kind of like this artist, but almost kind of like this one as well. And the more we talk, ironically, also we're kind of talking ourselves out of the sale because of that. And less truly is more. But in order for us to be concise and precise with what we're putting out there, there needs to be a framework that we follow that's been proven. And that's what I'm going to share. So this kind of all derives from a story brand framework. And that's inspired by the book Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. From there, he created a high ticket certification program. But the book itself uses a framework that was put together decades prior to that. So this has been in place for many, many years. And what he uses is what's known as the hero's journey by Joseph A. Campbell. And for those artists out there that are big filmophiles, they'll know that this is basically how 99% of all screenplays are based off of, where you start with the hero, and the hero is the protagonist, and they go on to a journey. And before they go on that journey, there needs to be something that they're aspiring for. They aspire to get the girl, or find the holy grail, or make something of themselves, and get the ideal career. Whatever the case may be, they need a want or a need, and there needs to be something that's getting in their way of achieving that. Because of course, if there's no conflict, there's no plot. So what's the conflict? What's the pain point? And how is that making them feel? And once we get really visceral with that, and we understand that this is an emotional blockage almost, now we need to identify who is that guide that's going to unblock them and take them from where they are to where they want to be. Now, where most brands get it wrong is they try to portray themselves as the hero. Nobody really wants to do business with a hero. Why is that? Because they want to be the hero. They want you to tell them how great they are and then show them how they can get to where they want to be. So you're actually the guide. And in our marketing messaging, what I've seen far too much, and I'm guilty of myself in the past, is that I would shine so much of a spotlight on myself as far as all the great things that I do, this, that, and the other, that I completely neglect my intended audience. And I forget that there's a what's in it for me type of factor that goes into it as well. So to remedy that, what we need to do is, once we identify the ideal audience, once we understand what their pain point is, and once we have a clear understanding of how we can seamlessly insert ourselves as the guide to address that pain point and take them to that next step, we now have a suite of deliverables that we should be able to put into place that gets that marketing process going. Okay, so it ultimately becomes a very plug-and-play scenario once we have 5 key components in a marketing checklist. So these are the tools that you need to do to grow your brand, your business. Most people don't have these, or they're doing them wrong. So I'm going to show you how to create these tools you need to get more sales, grow your business, become more recognizable, and ultimately have more people that you want in front of you know, like, and trust you. So first, as far as that's concerned, and any questions that either of you have with kind of the premise of that, where, all right, you understand who you are, what your role should be, and who your ideal client avatar is, or your ideal customer, and then what you need to do from there. Does all of that, at least at that point, make sense?
I think, what the main point of this is take the focus off of yourself and your music and whatever, and, really understand who it is that you're creating this for. And
precisely.
What is your mission? What is your values? What is your feeling behind your music? What is it that you want to accomplish within your music community? And when you focus on those people and what they're looking for, it's going to be a lot easier for you. And so these 5 steps that we're going to talk about is how you do that. Am I right?
Exactly. Yeah. And you hit the nail on the head there, Heidi. So, it's not about you. And that might seem counterintuitive. What do you mean it's not about me? It's my brand. It's my business. These are this is what I'm providing. This is, the music that I'm putting out there. Of course it's about me because it comes from me. But if you're doing anything that requires an audience, especially as an artist, you need to know that at the end of the day, it's about them. What do they want? What's the void that you're filling? And how can you create enough content that reaffirms that message along the way? So the first thing you need is the simplest. And because of that, as alluded to, tends to be also the most difficult to produce. And that's what's known as a one-liner. So the one-liner is essentially a concise statement that you use to clearly explain what you offer. It's typically like a sentence or two. There's 3 parts to it, which I'll get into in a little bit. And it's really the trigger is when somebody says, well, what do you do? And that's your chance to sell. Now, most people have a tagline and they think that works. It doesn't. You need a one-liner that clearly explains now three main things. It's the problem you solve, like we were talking about before, how you're going to solve it, and what the customer, the purchaser, the client's life looks like on the other side. So I'm going to walk you through how you can create that, but that's the first thing, okay? The next thing is essentially a wireframe website. So we are now, we're living in the future where, most transactions are made through the internet, through the digital space. And, the days of just kind of relying on word of mouth or guerrilla marketing or pounding the pavements, unfortunately, are over. It's a great supplement, but for most people, it's going to take something where you essentially have a digital business card that you can lead people to that reaffirms all this messaging. Okay? So it's a clear script for the words that you want to put on your website. That's what the wireframe is that it's a breakdown. All right, in this section goes this, the next section goes that. You can't afford to have a confusing website that doesn't convert browsers into buyers. Worst thing you could do is gain this amazing following and then lead the horse to poisonous water, because it's like the old deodorant commercials. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. If you remember those, like way back when. Same thing with your business. So if you've already gotten their attention, but then you lead them to something that's either confusing, it's poorly produced, it's not something that's going to intrigue them enough to continue to dig and find out more, then that's almost as bad, if not worse, than having no presence at all online. So we want to make sure that we're covering the most important beats once we get them to that stage as well. The next thing is a lead generator. So the lead generator is basically once you got them there, once you got them to the site, and you provide a call to action, which is essentially, well, buy my album or download this song or purchase, some other type of merchandise that's associated with my brand. If for whatever reason they're not ready to make that commitment, you still want something that's going to capture them. You want something that's going to at least still keep them in that sales cycle, especially if they've already been, on your site long enough where there's a level of interest, they're sitting on the fence. What of value can you offer them that will keep them in the loop and keep that process going? And this is a really critical point, because if you don't have something that captures them, then all of a sudden they're going to just slip through the cracks. And we're going to forget about them as a possible customer. They're going to forget about you as a possible provider. And then we're just back to square one. Okay. The whole goal of a lead generator is to capture contact information, specifically email addresses, because that's going to then lead into the next step, which is a nurture campaign. Okay. So once you have a lead generator, and by the way, when it comes to something like that, it needs to be something of value. So maybe it's, an article that speaks on behalf of some sort of trending topic that's relevant to your industry. It's a checklist of some sort as far as, okay, these are the things, if you're an aspiring fill in the blank, that you should be aware of. But something that most people probably would have invested at least something in either way, but now you're giving it to them for free in exchange for their email address. And they see that as a fair deal. Once you have that, then it's the nurture campaign. And that's essentially then getting them onto this drip of emails that regularly enter their inbox, that again provides some sort of value, of course, but also continue the narrative, continue the story from where you started as, okay, I'm aware that this is what you represent, to inching them ideally closer to the finish line of them becoming that client, customer, contact, etc. Okay, so that's typically.
I'm just going to stop you for just a second, because I know that there's probably some people out there thinking, okay, like I don't have money to set up all these systems with like email campaigns, and I don't really know like the first thing to even do this kind of stuff. And so we're not going into like all of the details about that, but I just want to give you a heads up that first of all, there are free programs available. And for when you're first getting started, the amount of people that they let you email on a free account is all that you're going to have probably. And a lot of these programs are really simple, like drag and drop. So if you've sent an email before, you can figure it out. And if you need some help, that's what our accountability group is for. So don't let that stop you from going to the next step to communicate with your audience. Now, the second thing you might be thinking is, if I'm offering something of value to my audience, that must mean that it's going to cost me something first. Like, you might be thinking like a t-shirt, like, okay, so that has a cost to it when you have to buy it. You can get really creative with the things that you have that are of value to your audience. It doesn't have to be a tangible item that you purchase first with a cost. One thing that would mean like the world to me, if I could hang out with my favorite bands. Like, I would pay for an hour of hanging out with my favorite musicians. I would. So you can create some sort of viewing party. You can do it digitally. It doesn't have to be in person. You can do things like that where people have access to you outside of your shows and your performances. That doesn't really cost you any money. It just costs you a little bit of time. So there's kind of an example of something that you could do with that. So anyway, now that we've got some limiting beliefs wiped away, Jeff, you may continue.
No, you're absolutely right. And to piggyback off of that, we were talking about this before we went on the air, the MVP. So the minimal viable product is that so often, and again, I was guilty of this when I first started my business, is that I was trying to strive for perfection as opposed to progress. And all I did was just continue to kick the can down the curb, and it wasn't really getting me anywhere. And too often we're our own worst enemy, where we try to get too cute. We try to kind of lead with something that's, is overly elaborate, when all we really need to do is just put ourselves out there, is give ourselves permission to even fail forward, especially when you're first getting started, especially when you're first trying to really kind of generate that presence. You'd be surprised how many people can relate to being human, to having someone. You were also mentioning, as far as one of your interviews the other day, where you just froze, and I asked you, "Oh, well, I'm sure you did some creative editing there." You said, "Hell no, I put it out there exactly how it was." And you know what? People appreciate that. People understand that we're all works in progress, especially when you're first getting started. So don't let any of this that might seem complicated to you dissuade you from at least getting started. Good enough is good enough, and you're going to iterate as you go. It's going to be a work in progress, but the most important thing is that MVP, that minimum viable product of getting something out and then naturally revising as you go. It's like whenever we write a song, write a script, usually it's not a finished product after the first draft, I would imagine. That's why they call it a draft. You breeze through it, and then you get to the second draft, and then you continue to refine as you go, especially based on the feedback that you're going to get. So I do want to reemphasize
that you mentioned that, because that is something else that you have to remember through these 5 steps. It's a process that doesn't stop, really. Like that one sentence. I've been working on that one sentence for like 2 years. And I go to networking meetings and I throw the sentence out there, and if it doesn't seem to resonate, then I know it's not right yet. And so I keep revising it and I keep working on it. And when I stumble on the right words, okay, now we'll maybe hang out with it for a while. But you know what? I'm probably still going to come up with something better. As long as I keep going, we're going to keep revising it and not think this is a project that actually ever is done. Same thing with all of the steps. It will revise as you grow, and you're going to stumble upon exactly that perfection that you were looking for at the beginning. But the only way to get that is to make a bunch of mistakes along the way to find out what does not work to get to what works.
Fail forward. Absolutely. Yeah, it's funny. So at StoryBrand, they say never laminate your brand script. So the brand script is essentially your foundational content piece where you have all the beats. Don't laminate that, because you're going to go back to it. You're going to make the revisions, and it's going to be just kind of this continuously fluid type of piece as you continue to discover things, and rightfully so. Yeah. So that's an important part of this as well, is knowing that you're never getting to the finish line, because your audience is constantly evolving as you are. So we have the first four things, again, that one-liner, as we had mentioned, the wireframe website, which once you get their attention, where are you going to lead them? Lead them to this site that's going to tell them a little bit more about your story, and do it in a very linear way where we generate awareness, we identify their problem, all those beats that we just talked about. We're going to hit them along the way. The lead generator, where we're having that contact exchange, for some sort of value. The nurture campaign, where we keep them front facing over the course of time, and each one gets a little bit closer to that call to action. And then also the one that we tend to forget about is the sales campaign. So once we are able to bring on a new customer, bring on a new client, etc., that's when a lot of people think, well, that's the end of the game. I did it. I finished, but that's not the case at all. Because if you're going to have a sustainable brand, you need sustainable customers. You need to keep them engaged. You need to find additional things that you're going to be able to provide to them that they're going to see value with. And that's why it's so important to get, I always like this, to talk about kind of the first 10, get those first 10 zealous fans, the ones that will just follow you to the edge of the earth, the ones that are practically stalking you, and get them bought into whatever else you bring to the table. And eventually those 10 are going to find 10, who are going to find 10, and then exponentially it goes. But it's really important to really understand who are those first 10 zealous people that are going to be at the front of the line with everything that you do. And that's where the sales campaign comes into play, as far as giving them a reason to continue to take the bait off the hook there. Okay.
And you know what? That takes a lot of pressure off as far as finding fans and building a community. We have a worldwide audience with the internet. So with 10 people, don't you think you could find 10 people that enjoy your music as much as you enjoy your music in the whole wide world? And that's all you need to do to get started. It's going to get the momentum going, and it's going to grow from there.
That's so huge. So all you really need to get anything started when it comes to a marketing campaign are the 5 things that I mentioned there. You don't have to worry about all the other things that are out there. And that's, kind of the double-edged sword of the world that we're living in today, is that there's too many options. And it provides this paralysis by analysis, when all we really need to do is get back to the basics of start with who you are, who your ideal audience is, and what problem you solve. There's your one-liner, okay? Take them to your site. Once they know, okay, well, where can I find out more about you? All right, well, here's my calling card. Here's my story. Here's, a story about you as the ideal client. And here's how I can come in and give you further proof points of why I'm that ideal artist, that ideal brand. Then you get into the nurturing campaign. You keep them involved. Obviously, on the site, you're going to get the transitional call to action, also known as the lead generator. And then you're just keeping them in the loop, and it just becomes a conversation from there. Now, as far as putting it into place, as you had mentioned before, sometimes it can be a little bit daunting if you're not, a writer by nature, although I would imagine most artists also write their own as well. It's just another way of writing it. It's just another way of kind of identifying the psychology of your intended audience. But for those that need that extra guidance, I would highly encourage you to check out what I see is scrolling right now, which is the Story Brand Marketing Made Simple live stream that we're doing next week, next Tuesday and Wednesday. And what that's going to do is you're going to be a part of several hundred other people just like you who are in a position they want to build their brand, raise awareness, raise visibility, but just need that hand-holding to actually get something into place. By the end of these 2 days, you're going to have all 5 of those, at least the framework of it, together. You're going to have the MVP ready just in those 2 days, not to mention the opportunity that you're going to have to interact with potential zealous fans of yours through the networking opportunities of this live stream. And you'd be able to be part of my breakout coaching group where you'll get one-on-one attention, and you'll also get a complimentary coaching session outside of that to ensure that, and you'll like this, Hides, you remain accountable to take it to the next level and keep things going, and that you have the necessary support by your side. So you have all the things you need.
If people are watching this like after May 9th and 10th, which is when this particular one is going on, that you do these things like on a kind of regular basis.
Yeah, the live streams are typically quarterly, if I'm not mistaken. And of course, this is something that I do for a living. So, live stream or not, you'll still have the luxury of connecting with me. I can walk you through all these assets. I can make sure that we're working together on creating the narrative that you want, identifying the audience that you feel this will resonate with most, and then ensuring that you're putting your best foot forward to be seen as that brand that you want to become.
So what we talked about today is really just a very high level for you to know what the 5 steps are. But when you go to this live stream, you're going to get all the details. So what's good about this is you're going to get a lot of it done, a lot of it started. Now, remember, this is not project that never gets done, but you're going to get it started done. So you can be like, all right, I've got the framework built, and now I can start building on it from there. So rather than taking what you learned today and kind of piecing it together and guessing, this is going to take the guesswork completely out of it, and then taking advantage of the other things that Jeff has to offer. Jeff writes screenplays. He is a journalist, and he is an amazing writer. So going back to if you're afraid of trying to figure out how to write things and reach your audience, Jeff's a great person to talk to give you inspiration and insight on how you could be writing some of this stuff to have more impact. So I really, really encourage you to take advantage of Jeff's offer. Do a one-on-one with him. At the very least, have another conversation with him and apply some of the stuff to you specifically, and get more value out of what we're offering you here today. This is only just a little piece of it.
Yeah, just getting the appetizer right here, kind of whet your palate. But I really appreciate all of that, Hides. And let me tell you, I mean, this has been a labor of love for me since I started this last year. I've worn, as you mentioned, a couple of them. I've worn a couple of hats within my career, and it's always been a bit of a challenge for me to really kind of identify my new market, my new audience as I've transitioned from one role to another. But the common through line with all of what I've done really has been, looking back, the art of storytelling, the art of creating a story. And any creative, I would imagine, if they don't have that storytelling element that's baked in and is very clear and apparent, then they're missing the boat, because this is a human thing that we're doing. Our creativity, all this proprietary insight that we have, we need to share it with the world. And if we're not doing that, we're doing the world a disservice, because like you said, 10 people out of 7 billion, or however many are in the world, is pretty doable. It's pretty realistic. Double down on them before you decide that you're going to have rock star status in a matter of hours. Really cultivate that audience, really nurture that audience, because those are the ones that are going to get you to where you want to go, because you gave them the attention and you fulfilled that need, that problem that they had. And because of that, you have a lasting relationship as a result.
Awesome. Gosh, that's such a great way to end this episode. But hey, Mike, I wanted to give you the option. Do you have any questions for Jeff?
No, not at this time, because honestly, I was like mesmerized in everything Jeff was saying. Like, just finding how everything he said correlated to that aspect of music and finding your audience. And once again, it was just something that I really needed to hear too. So I'm just sitting in that whole, I'm stewing it over now, and I'm like, oh man, that was deep. But yeah, all powerful stuff,
Right.
Jeff. Thank you.
And don't stew too long. Like we said, we want to take action at some point and put this into into implementation there. So I'm glad that you got something out of that.
Absolutely.
And, we're all in this together. We need more creative, altruistic, entrepreneurial minded people out there. And we're paying it forward by doing so.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Jeff, so much for sharing all that information with us today. And this replay is going to be in the Accountable to Music group in the guides, along with all of Jeff's information. So you're going to be able to reach out to him. You'll be able to see the slides from this. So it will help you with some of your notes. And of course, take advantage of the live stream link and get all of the information, get started, get it done, and then let's all be accountable. So thanks, Mike. Thanks, Jeff. Another great episode, and we will see all of you again next week. Don't forget to tune in on Friday.